What is the truth about the Talmud? Is it a collection of evil, ugly books that spend much time blaspheming Jesus and condemning Gentiles to hell or painting Gentiles as inferior? What about the contents of the Talmud? Should this literature be suppressed? Should people be warned about it? Is it misunderstood? How should we as followers of Jesus relate to it? I want to do my best to address these statements in light of a lot of controversies that are swirling around today. All right, volume 5 of my series, Answering Jewish Objections to Jesus. Almost 500 endnotes, almost 340 pages. This is the 5th volume in a 5-volume series. I deal with traditional Jewish objections to Jesus, and one of them is this: that as Jews, this is a traditional Jewish objection, as Jews, we have a written law that God gave to Moses on Mount Sinai, and we have an oral law that he gave to explain the commandments. What does it mean, don't work on the Sabbath? What does it mean, don't steal? How do we define these things? What is work? What isn't work? What are the penalties, etc.? And it explains these, it expands them in an oral law. And traditional Jews believe that Moses then passed these traditions on and these principles of interpretation to Joshua, Joshua to the elders to the prophets, etc., all the way down to the time of Jesus. And then ultimately, a couple hundred years after the time of Jesus, these traditions developed further. They were put in writing. That becomes the Mishnah, becomes the Talmud, and ongoing Jewish literature since then. So the whole purpose of this volume is to explain why I reject the Talmudic tradition as being inspired by God or going back in an unbroken chain to Moses, or being a valid interpretation of the written law. I have a whole volume. Maybe as a follower of Jesus today, I can say I've written about this in more depth than anyone else has, especially as a Jewish follower of Jesus. So this means that the authority structure of the rabbinic community, that the traditions they revere, many of them are beautiful, some of them are neutral, some of them I think are bad and stifling. But it means that we are on very different pages, and that they see me as an outsider, all right? And that's why when I was preaching Jesus Yeshua in Israel this year, in Jerusalem, or actually last year, that's why I end up being surrounded by an angry crowd of religious Jews, and as I profess faith in Yeshua, the Messiah, some of them spitting on the ground, because what they know about him is evil. What they know about him connects Christianity directly to the Holocaust. So I want them to know who he really is, but who they think he is very evil and ugly, and that's how they think of me. So I've been rejected. I've been spat in the face. I've been warned that I'd be strangled by an angry Orthodox Jew years back for preaching the gospel, okay? So I'm not presenting things as if we're all on the same page. However, the Talmud is consistently misrepresented. The Talmud is consistently lied about. The Talmud is consistently misunderstood, and there's a fresh wave of this now, because of which a fresh wave of anti-Semitism is rising among even professing Christians. I've got some clips to show you. We're going to look at some Talmudic texts. So this is going to be an eye-opening time together. Let me take you to an article on the Jewish Virtual Library about the burning of the Talmud. And it's talking about Christian and Jewish relations. And it says, despite the massive restrictions imposed on the Jews by the church and the political, social, and economic spheres, and the attacks on the oral law by Christian theologians, the campaign to proscribe, so outlaw Jewish literature, was not launched until the 13th century. So traditional Jews, trying to keep their traditions and simply live in their own communities, were being harassed by the Catholic Church, by other Christian leaders. They were being criticized. There was pressure on them to convert, etc. And then finally, what happens is, as you get into the 13th century in France, there is a major campaign. There is a Jewish man converts to Catholicism. They now require a Jewish leader to debate him. And then after that, they burn thousands of copies of the Talmud. Now, they have to understand, this is before the printing press, okay? This is a massive, massive work of 20 volumes and thousands and thousands and thousands of pages. So to burn the Talmuds was a horrific thing to do. And other writings were burned as well. You say, but this is the church. This is the professing church. What are they doing burning literature? Even if they differ with it, even if they don't like what's in it, Why are they burning it? Well, it's heinous. It's one of the reasons that, excuse me, so many Jews have such a problem with Christianity. That religious Jews say, well, you've oppressed us, you've beaten us, you persecuted us, you've killed us, you burned our sacred literature, and you're saying that you're following the Messiah, that you're following the Prince of Peace, that we should believe in your Savior. All he's done is hurt us and cursed us and persecuted us. That would be a Jewish perspective of history, the way the church has often treated the Jews. And they might say, well, they all deserved it. That is the standard anti-Semitic lie. Yeah, just like the blacks deserve to be enslaved. Exactly. The same type of lies and dehumanizing of other people. All right, now, there is an extremist rabbi, a fringe rabbi in Israel, whose views would be categorically denounced by the vast majority of rabbis in Israel and by virtually every secular Israeli. Here's what happened. The Talmuds were burned in front of the cathedral in Notre Dame. Now that cathedral is on fire, and this radical rabbi suggests that the fire may have been retribution for the 13th century Talmud burning. So Shlomo Aviner, who moved to Israel from France in the 60s, suggests that the fire that gutted the iconic church may have been divine retribution for the burning of Jewish manuscripts in 1242. And he says this. It's wrong to go burn a synagogue down, but we don't have to burn a church down, but we don't have to feel sad about it. We don't have to feel sad. And this might be divine retribution. He's radical, fringe, and listen to me, as clear as I can be. There are radical, fringe Jewish fundamentalists who are dangerous, just like there are radical, fringe Christian fundamentalists who are dangerous, and a whole lot of radical fundamentalist Islamists who are dangerous. They exist in every religion. They exist in the Hindu religion as well. So this rabbi's views are ugly and to be renounced, and they have been by other Israelis and Jews who react with horror to hearing something like that. However, if you've got it in for the Jews, if you are believing anti-Semitic lies and think that you are now crusading for Christian truth, you're going to buy right into this and use this as a provocation to further point at the Jews. Doesn't matter, it's one fringe guy not representing the people. No, the Jews. So we go back to True News. Remember, they have refused to further interact with me after I called them out on putting out some anti-Semitic lies. They said, great, come on our TV show. I said, in a heartbeat, as long as you come on my radio show also, let's make it 50-50 even. Nope. Well, then let's have a formal debate. No, we're not interested in debating. You have to rebuke Ben Shapiro. This is not Christian orthodoxy. Rebuke everyone that doesn't believe in Jesus. No matter how respectful they are towards your beliefs, go around rebuking them as Antichrist. All right, so let's take you into True News talking about the Talmud. Clip number 1.
We know that the majority of evangelical Christians have never even heard the word Talmud. Wouldn't even know what it means if it came up and bit them.
A lot of their pastors do.
Their pastors do.
Yeah.
And it's being taught, like you said, on Christian television, Christian radio, Christian rabbis. I don't know how you can be a Christian rabbi.
Okay, the last point, Christian rabbi. I use the term messianic rabbi to say that this is not a traditional rabbi. And I understand some say it shouldn't be called rabbi at all. Fine. No big argument for me about that. However, I can guarantee you that 99.9999% of pastors in America have virtually no clue what's in the Talmud. Oh, and I can guarantee you that the gentlemen that are on that stage, they're on that TV platform, I can almost assuredly guarantee you, they have never worked their way through a single daf, a single page of the Talmud and understood the dialectical argument and can, here, tell me please, those of you who claim to speak about the Talmud as Christians, tell me please the progression from the Zugot to the Tanaim to the Amoraim. Tell me please the difference between Mishnah and Gemara. Tell me about Tosefta and extraneous Baraitot. Please, tell me about the development of the Sugya. Tell me about some of the principles of interpretation. Please break down for me the 6 orders of the Mishnah and the Talmud. Tell me which then tractates of the 63 tractates are found in the Jerusalem Talmud and the Babylonian Talmud. Tell me which one of them is more authoritative between them and why one is studied more than the other. Let's just get started to see if you even know what you're talking about. Or have you read a select quote pulled out of context and butchered? All right, back to True News, clip number 2.
When the king had all the Talmuds and Maimonides' books, Ben Shapiro, your buddy, your hero, Maimonides, because he too was convicted of blasphemy, like you're a blasphemer. And his books were brought in the wagons, and they were brought into Paris. And where were they burned?
In front of Notre Dame Cathedral.
That's a shameful thing that happened. That is a blight on Christian history. That is one of the ugly moments. And one of the co-hosts there says, yeah, that's when the church pushed back against the Talmud. This is putting forth ignorant. Listen, a few years ago, a missionary group handed out New Testaments to Ethiopian Jews in a Jewish community. And some rabbis, some militants in the community grabbed those New Testaments and burned them. There was an outcry over Israel. We don't burn books. The Nazis burned our books. The Catholic Church burned our books. We don't burn books. There was an outcry over this. Rick Wiles says, no, we're not advocating burning books, but exposing them. Well, how about understanding what's actually in them? And how about renouncing and denouncing those who burned books out of ignorance and out of fear and out of superstition? How about that? And how about owning up to some of the horrible history of anti-Semitism that's been carried out in the name of Jesus? What does the Talmud actually say about the Gentiles, about pederasty and things like that, about Jesus? Is he in hell according to the Talmud? What's actually written there? One more clip. This is a different broadcast. Rick Wiles, True News, talking to his co-hosts about the Talmud, about Judaism and slavery to the Jews. This is what they're putting forth.
You read the Talmud, you know what we Goyim get to do. We get to be slaves.
To serve them, right?
We already are.
Well, we get to be extra slaves to
Well,
it's just
you're already into Jewish slavery. You're already serving it.
We are, man.
Look at the look at the money in your wallet. Federal Reserve notes. You're already a slave.
Look at the things we're forced to talk about every single day as Americans, or anyone in the world. The media, the narratives, the talking points. Everyone focusing on Jesse Smollett right now is even party to this hoax because it's completely irrelevant compared to what you just presented here.
That hoax, though, is part of the propaganda campaign to break down the society.
Right.
Now, here's the deal. If you come to faith and you have satanic material in your home, let's say you were a Satanist, and a Satan worshiper, and you burn your books. I destroyed rock albums I had when I got saved, but I don't go to my neighbor's house and take their rock albums and destroy them. Or if my neighbor's a Muslim, take their Quran and burn it. No, you don't do that. And that's what the church did. It seized books from the Jewish community and burned them. Oh, but those books say that the Gentiles are just going to be slaves to the Jews, and we're all slaves to the Jews now. That's the kind of nonsense that's being put forward. So what does the Talmud actually say? And again, it's a massive series of books, and it's massively complex, and there are all kinds of things quoted in there that get misunderstood and taken out of context. So there's an Israeli, he's an atheist himself, and he goes around interviewing other Israelis, asking questions. So he's asking them questions about, does the Talmud teach certain things? Here he's talking to a religious Jewish woman. It's all religious Jews he's talking to. Here he's talking to a religious Jewish woman. Let's watch what happens.
If you eat with a goy, someone who's Gentile, it is the same as eating with a dog.
Definitely not.
Okay, it is permitted to take the body and life of somebody who's not Jewish.
No.
And you can cheat Gentiles or idol worshippers.
No.
All right, she's asking, is this taught in the Talmud? No. So now he sits down with an ultra-Orthodox rabbi in the midst of his study and all of his books, and he's going to ask him these questions. Let's listen to what the rabbi has to say.
The phrase in the Talmud is not the word non-Jews. The phrase in the Talmud is those who worship stars. Now, that's a technical term that is not necessarily synonymous with non-Jews. It refers primarily to pagans and idol worshippers. So one idea that we need to understand is that non-Jews that are monotheistic, non-Jews that are committed to the idea of one God and ethical morality are not subsumed under that negative connotation.
Isn't that interesting? The Talmud does not make a certain statement about Gentiles in general, but about idol worshipers. That's the difference. So what about how far does this go? What does Jewish literature actually say about this? Let's listen to another clip from the same rabbi.
So Akum is an abbreviation. Akum is Oved Kochavim Umazalot.
Yeah.
A worshiper of stars and planets. So really, it does not refer to a non-Jew as much as it means a pagan. Keep in mind, too, you have to remember that in ancient cultures, pagans often murdered with impunity. They would leave children out to die. Their morality was very, very lax. In ancient Greece and Rome, religion was not perceived as having a connection to morality. In fact, the Greek gods themselves were highly immoral characters. So again, I think it's much more of a reflection of the cultural degradation of that society. It's more of a condemnation of the culture and belief system more than it is a personal attack.
He even goes on to say that even if a Jewish soul starts on a higher plane than a Gentile soul because of divine calling, God calling Israel, he said, even if that was the case, he said it could well be that a Mother Teresa is far more holy than a Jew. In other words, a Jew has been given more by God, greater accountability. Paul says judgment starts with the Jew and the gospel goes to the Jew first, right? In Romans 1 and Romans 2, he says those things. But here, this rabbi is saying, look, this is what's taught in Judaism. The righteous of all the nations have a place in the world to come, and that there can be a Gentile God-fearer who's at a higher place spiritually than a high priest in Israel. This is taught in Jewish literature. You say, but doesn't the Talmud teach that Jesus is burning an excrement in hell? Possibly. There's a debate. I've studied this with religious Jews. Is it talking about Jesus or is it talking about someone else of the same name? Because the time periods don't work. Often there's a Jesus being attacked, but he lives at a different time. And that was actually a common name back then, Yeshua, or it becomes Yeshu. It gets shortened, right? And then it becomes a derogatory name. It's possible that the Talmud, there is a statement in the midst of millions of words that says it. But look, that's ugly. That's extreme. All right. I want you to understand that I've had rabbis tell me from the day I got saved that what Jesus says about the Pharisees is a great insult to them. They said those were some of the holiest men who ever lived. Those were godly men. Those are our teachers. And he's damning them all to hell. He's saying they're children of hell. That's very offensive to us. That's why we can't believe in your book, because we know these leaders and how godly and holy they were. That's what they say. I just posted this on Twitter moments ago. As a Christian, if you believe Muhammad is a false prophet, does that mean he's in hell? 77% of the Christians responding so far said yes, in hell. So as a Christian, do you believe Muhammad is in hell right now? Do you believe the rabbis who didn't believe in Jesus are in hell right now? Well, that's very offensive to a Muslim. That's very offensive to the rabbinic community. So, but we're not going to go out and burn the Quran, and we're not going to go out and burn the other literature because of that. So even if the Talmud says it, if so, it's ugly, and it's also a pushback against Christian persecution and things like that. But even if it says it, first there's a debate whether it does or not. But even if it says it, that is not what the Talmud's about. That is not 0.001% of what the Talmud's about. I reject Talmudic authority. I reject the inspiration of the Talmud. I'm not a Talmudic Jew. I'm a Jewish follower of Jesus. I'm a Messianic Jew. I'm in constant battle with the rabbinic community over the faith. I've been called public enemy number one by rabbis because of my sharing the gospel. All right? Those are realities. But here, one more thing, just quickly. Let's go to a Talmudic passage, all right? Let's go to Ketubot, all right? 11b. Ketubot 11b. You'll see on top, that's the text in Aramaic and Hebrew. And then beneath it is a translation by Rabbi Adin Stanschaltz. The bold words are the literal text, but because it's so concise and full of meaning, he has to give a full-length explanation here, all right? And the issue is, it's going down and discussing the question about whether a woman should be considered a virgin or not when she gets married. Here's what it's dealing with. It's dealing with the question of when there's a marriage contract being made, if a woman is a virgin or not. All right. What happens to a woman who, before she was even 3 years old, was sexually abused by another man? What happens to that? And it says it's nothing. It's no, this is what does it mean? It means she's still considered a virgin. That the rabbinic view is a merciful view, that rather than saying this girl who was abused before she was 3 years old should no longer be considered a virgin. She didn't commit a crime. She didn't sin. She didn't go sleep with somebody. So it's considered nothing. It's just like it says, if she was broken by a piece of wood, okay, that's all that says. It doesn't say the thing is no. Throughout the Talmud, there's all law after law after law about sexual relations. Go meet an ultra-Orthodox rabbi as a woman and go to shake his hand. He pulls his hand back. He's not allowed to touch another woman. All right, go walking through an ultra-Orthodox area in Israel as a woman. Maybe you're wearing shorts and a shirt. You won't be allowed in there. No, you got to be totally covered up. Why? Because there's principles of modesty and things like that are actively taught. Here, we're told, no, according to Talmud, a guy could marry off a girl at 3 and then start having sex with her. Okay, Kiddushin, 81b in the Talmud, okay? And here, I'll just read to you some of the relevant English. Rabbi Elazar, it is prohibited for a man to betroth his daughter when she is a minor until she grows up and says, I want to marry so-and-so. Otherwise, she might reject the designated husband and ultimately sin by committing adultery. So here the Talmud is saying, look, if you force somebody into a marriage that they don't consent to, they may end up revolting against that, rejecting that person, committing adultery. So you do not, this is what the Talmud teaches. Yes, but I read something else. That's why you need to sit and look at the rabbinic commentaries. That's why you need to sit and look at the further background. That's why you need to sit and understand it. Once again, I am not a Talmudic Jew. I 1,000 to 1 prefer the writings of the New Testament to the writings of the Talmud or the Mishnah. There are beautiful traditions in there. There are fascinating interpretations in there. There are things with some wonderful background that give us insight into Jewish beliefs and customs that would have been prevalent in Jesus' day. But for the most part, it's legalese. For the most part, it's brilliant. It takes a lifetime to learn it. And it's saying, hey, God gave us these laws. We got to understand every little last detail. I respect the spirit behind it, but I differ. I say God's given us a new and better covenant in Yeshua. But let's not misrepresent it and get worked up into burning Talmuds again today.